Can we all be seated? Can we all be settled? Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Cathsseta 2022 Annual General Meeting held in Centurion, Pretoria, today, the 2nd of December 2022. This is an event of Cathsseta, the leader in skills development. I am Lebogang Mpie. I am the Executive Manager, Skills Development at Cathsseta. And on behalf of Cathsseta, I would like to thank each and everyone for attending this meeting. It is indeed a blessing to have each and every one of you with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered today to meet as a collective, as Cathsseta stakeholders, board members, Cathsseta staff, to ensure that our stakeholders knows what the SETA has done in the previous financial year, and to make sure that our stakeholders also understands the operations of the organization and the finances and status of the organization. We also want to outline the direction as of where the SETA is going in the current financial year. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an agenda that was flagged on the screen that we're going to be adhering to today. And also, I would like to acknowledge the following people that are in our midst today. I would like to acknowledge our chairperson, Mr. David Tembandlovu. I'm going to ask him to raise his hand or stand up for people to see him, just so that everyone can be able to see him. That's our chairperson, ladies and gentlemen. I'm also going to introduce our board members. I'm going to start with Ms. Edith Tukakomu, Mr. Moses Mota, Mr. Itumeleng Dichabe, he's absent. Mr. Joseph Ntuli, Mr. Solomon Mhlanga, still on his way. Mr. Thulahanyo Hau Shubelwi, Ms. Sumaya Khan, still on his way, on her way. Mr. Vincent Maumela, Ms. Lisiruha Lisutu, Ms. Maureen Nzuza, Ms. Rachel Piri, still on her way. Mr. Richard Apani, sorry. Mr. Manene Tabani. Okay, I also want to acknowledge the Audit and Risk Committee of Cathsseta under the leadership of Ms. Lubanga. I also want to acknowledge the independent members of FINREMCO with us today. I also want to acknowledge the CEO of Cathsseta, Mr. Max Tibela. I want to acknowledge the SETA CEOs that are with us today. I also want to acknowledge the D-Head representative with us today, Mr. Ngubani. And I also want to acknowledge the Cathsseta executive team, Mr. Marota, who's our CFO, Mr. Fezekile Mpako, who's our corporate services manager, executive manager, and Dr. Umana, our planning and research manager. I want to acknowledge our management, Cathsseta management that is with us, from the regional managers, from Cape Town, Durban, Gauteng province. I also want to acknowledge all government departments that are here with us, CEOs of other establishments that we're working with as Cathsseta, and lastly, all our stakeholders that are representing our diverse subsectors. And ladies and gentlemen, in our midst, we have a team of 4 people that represented Cathsseta. In October, not Cathsseta, actually, South Africa. In October at Switzerland, we have our 2 students that were nominated as best performers under the skills of cooking and the skills of restaurants. And they are trainers or experts. I'm going to acknowledge Mr. Setrem Kumalo, we call him Chef, who was training the cook, Lena, who went to Switzerland to represent South Africa, not Cathsseta. Can you stand? And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to request that we give them a round of applause. We have again Mr. Liseja Kole from Ekurhuleni West TVET College, who was mentoring and training the restaurant Lena. Mr. Kole. We have our distinguished guest, who are Yanga Jili, who was representing us, South Africans, on restaurant. He did very well in Switzerland. And we also have David Rampele, who was representing us under cook in Switzerland. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to also acknowledge our members that are connecting virtually. I hope they're able to hear and see what is happening here at the hotel in Centurion. So as we proceed, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, with our program, I'm going to now request our chairman, Mr. David Tembandlovu, to come and provide us with a formal opening remarks and welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, our chairperson is very dedicated and has passion on skills development. He has vast experience from basic education to higher education, and his mission is to identify skills gaps in South Africa and make sure that he comes with solutions to close them. If you sit with him, he will tell you, Ms. Impie, how about we do this? How about we do this? We really appreciate to be led by a person like him, who is really imparting his knowledge that is coming from him when he was working in the basic education until now he's sitting in the board of Cathsseta. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please give him a round of applause? Thank
you. It's always strategic to always rise before the start, because you then ensure that you don't get to be embarrassed with the inputs that get to be said and the output that you then give. When they fail to match, then you have a problem. Members of the Cathsseta board and committees present and those absent and those on the virtual platform. Mr. Mabuza Ngubane, the Chief Director, thank you very much, Ngumane, for honoring us with your presence. CEO, Executive Management, and the entire staff of the Cathsseta, chairpersons and CEOs of other SETAs represented today here, chairperson of the SETA CEO and CEO of Fiber Processing and Manufacturing, Dr. Feleng Yende, acting CEO of Mining Qualifications Authority, Dr. Mashungwane, CEO of Insurance SETA, Ms. Gukumkize, and other SETA CEOs attending virtually. Representatives from other government institutions, constituents, members and stakeholders, skills development providers, members of the media, participants joining the event virtually, a very warm welcome indeed and a good morning. It being the second day of December, the energies are beginning to sap a little, but the heart is still pumping hard and the energy is still there. So let's see how we run the day. Program director, stakeholders present, eminent members of the Accounting Authority of the Cathssetas, a hearty welcome to this, the 2021-2022 annual general meeting of the organization. As we stand before you today, we observe that the number of attendees and participants to this event has increased dramatically, and that those of us in physical face-to-face presence are doing so without donning face masks. This is a clear indication of the demonstrable positive impact of the programs and initiatives that have been rolled over the last few years in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the last year, we have focused our energies and resources towards rebuilding the various subsectors that were negatively impacted by the pandemic. Recent statistics show that the hospitality and tourism subsectors have recovered from the difficult situation they have had to contend with over the last 3 years, including lower than normal visitor numbers, resulting in loss of revenue and culminating in loss of jobs. The direct consequences of the 4.9% increase in real GDP reported for the 2021 calendar year has had positive ripple effects in the sectors under our jurisdiction. The tourism and travel services sector registered phenomenal growth as international arrivals more than doubled to over 130% in January 2022 compared to the same period in 2021. In the hospitality subsector, revenue from accommodation increased by a whopping 98.3% in February 2022 compared to the same period in 2021. The increase in total levies received by the SETA in the 2021-2022 financial year has borne witness to these positive developments, and we are extremely grateful for this. The above points to the benefits that have flown from the rollout of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan that has been implemented and forcefully driven by government. This plan is supported by sector strategies that are driven by various clusters of government. The Cathsseta has supported the ERRP through the implementation of the Chef Artisan Program, which is aimed at providing skills to the hospitality subsector by enrolling at least 334 learners. We have also placed several TVET learners in establishments for work-based learning and exposure. This may not be enough, but it is our small contribution towards the skills development in the country, and indeed we hope that if the drive to increase our coffers and our resources, we will multiple this manifolds. The economic revival of 2021 notwithstanding, the local macroeconomic outlook has deteriorated as a result of global challenges to economic growth. High interest rates, increasing inflation, the continuing war, high fuel prices, ongoing power cuts, together with severe flooding in KwaZulu-Natal, are some of the forces impacting negatively on South Africa's economic outlook. The high rate of unemployment among the youth of this country remain the biggest threat to our democracy. The latest statistics show that in the first quarter of the 2022 calendar year, the unemployment rate was sitting at 63.9% for those aged 15 to 24 and 42.1% for those aged 25 to 34. This is evidently way above the normal rate, which stands at 34.5%, and in the last quarter we have a report that it has been reduced somewhat to around 33%. A positive development, but one that is minuscule and coming rather too little too late. The sector is charged with the responsibility to develop strategies to address the problem of youth unemployment and to do so speedily and decisively. If the youth is the future of this country, we cannot afford to continue in the ways we have done things. It cannot be business as usual. We cannot afford to apply the same strategies to the problems that have continued to be as elusive and as diabolical. The platform is burning. If we have as many of our youth in the streets begging, looking the way they do, in drugs the way they are, hopeless, in despair, the numbers increasing by the day, we must project 3 generations down the line and tell me what it is that we're going to end up at. And we, this collective, have a massive responsibility on our shoulders to avert the catastrophe that is facing our country. colleagues and fellow stakeholders, the National Skills Development Plan advocates for capacity building within the public technical and vocational education and training college to enable them to compete with other private skills development providers. These institutions present a real opportunity for us to address the challenges that our youth is facing. If you look at the figures that we have in enrollments that tell us that in the universities we have about 1,100 students in Mbomvu, and in the TVET sector we've got 700,000, and in CET about 300,000, it tells you just how much we need to be focusing in this sector to get this youth that we're talking about that is in the street, hopeless and in despair, back into the mainstream of our economy and back into a rehabilitated societal environment. As at 31st March 2022, the finalization of project plans and building plans have been completed for the construction of 2 state-of-the-art industrial kitchens and related hospitality facilities in the Eastern Cape province at the King Sabata Dalindyebo and King Yinza TVET colleges in Mapunzi and Butterworth respectively. The state-of-the-art facilities will benefit the TVET students who wish to study hospitality courses within those areas and not move to the urban areas where the space is always limited. An amount of about 20 million has been allocated to these projects. Again, not perhaps too much, but coming from a limited base, Mbovu, that we continue to pray that means be looked into to ensure that given the number of sectors and the amount of responsibility that this SETA has to face, we find novel ways of resourcing so that we can begin to respond more effectively to the challenges that are facing us. Furthermore, as part of promoting career guidance, which is one of the NSDP outcomes, the Cathsseta, in collaboration with the National Department of Tourism and the Gauteng Department of Economic Development, hosted the National Tourism Career Expo in March 2022 at Nasrec Expo Center, Johannesburg. Themed Rebuilding a Resilient and Inclusive Tourism Sector for the Future, the expo drew over 4,000 participants comprising grades 9 to 12 learners, TVET and students and university students, as well as unemployed graduates from all over the country. The 3-day career expo, for which we were a part, was aimed at creating awareness about tourism and hospitality sector career opportunities, as well as harnessing and developing tourism educators' skills and competencies. In doing all of this, we have realized the need to ensure the growth of partnerships. The problem of unemployment cannot be solved by us working in silos. In realization of this fact, the Cathsseta has partnered with various universities, University of Technology, and created platforms for knowledge and information sharing. We are placing a lot of emphasis on research to understand emerging trends in our sectors. Research is central in providing evidence to inform policy formulation and the design of programs aimed at improving systems and services within the SETA. Our partnerships have yielded results in the form of research studies conducted during the period under review, with reports produced and made available on our website. As reflected in the PSET review that was conducted by DHET recently, there is indeed a massive need for us to work together and to do things differently. There is indeed a need for the sector to respond in concert in the fight against the 3 scourges that we all know. Coming to the performance of the entity, I'm delighted to report that we have seen an improvement of 16% from the prior year, as we recorded 89% when compared to the 73% in the previous year. This shows that we're gradually moving towards achieving the target of 100% performance. I cannot move away from this point without talking about the positive audit outcome that we received from the Auditor General of South Africa. I'm elated to announce that we received an unqualified audit opinion and are well on our way towards obtaining a clean audit. This outcome follows on 5 consecutive years of an unqualified audit opinion. And it is for this reason that this AA has committed itself to a clean audit henceforth. As per the engagement that we took at the PSET review session, Mr. Mbomvu, having looked at the progress made in the implementation of 2019-2024 medium-term strategic framework of government, it came clear that we have a long way to go in realizing the impact that is envisaged. Whilst as a SETA, we have made progress in various areas of our performance, the interventions that have been implemented seem not to be contributing directly to reducing the levels of the 3 scourges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, as I've mentioned. We have commenced with the engagement of moving away from just chasing figures and chasing numbers to that of looking at outcomes and the impact. We can assure you as this SETA, Mr. Mbomvu, that the message that came out of that conference that spoke of emphasis on outcome and impact and ensuring that going forward we work together as a ecosystem of the skills development, we will indeed be in the front line of the driving forces towards the revision of the 2025-2030 MTSF, and in the main, we are behind the drive that says perhaps the next decade should be that we will be called the decade of industry or the industry decade, so that we ensure that we bridge this gap that exists between our skills development programs and the intake of our learners into industry. Unless we actually ensure that the people for whom we produce the skills actually are happy with the skills that we produce and are readily involved in taking them on and directing their cause, we will continue to produce people and learners that do not end up getting employment, and then having all sorts of explanations and excuses that we put each time we are being asked to report on our performance. Equally, we are clear now that going forward, we will move away from reporting inward-looking, internal reporting, which says, as the CEO or as the board chairperson or as an executive, did you complete? Did you submit on time? Did you review on time? Surely when we do that, we're reporting on exercises and on activities that we carry out. It is not surprising, therefore, that we continue to have our learners not in employment. It's not surprising that the rate of unemployment continues the way it's continuing with the youth. If we are sitting at 89% and we're chasing 100%, it should be 89% that says, how many learners have we taken out of the streets, out of the drugs, put them into the learning skills and ensured that they get employment. That is what should be in our performance agreements and performance contracts, and that is what, as AAs, we should have the oversight responsibility of over and report on. We, Mr. Ngubane, are committed to be in the forefront of the drive that DHET is putting in place and support the best way we can. As the minister says, the platform is burning and we cannot continue to apply the same solutions to the problem that has continued to elude us for this long. As I conclude, I would like to request you to please sit back and let our team take your take you through the organization's performance for the period under review. As you may have seen, our program will allow you the opportunity to participate, ask a few questions, both here as well as in the virtual platform. I thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairperson has requested you to sit back and let us take you through Cathsseta's AGM. Kastswana bari hololusehang. Lekarepa, you can even take off your shoes and relax and enjoy this day with us. Colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, stakeholders, as a SETA, we are thriving to improve with what we're doing. As you have heard the Chairperson, we moved from 86% and we are now trying to go to 100% and clean audit. And ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't have done this as a SETA alone, and we have not done this because we can. We have done this because of your support as our stakeholders who are submitting quality documents for us to be able to report, for us to get clean audit. And also, we have done this because of the leadership that we receive from our board members and other committees that we have. And also, we have achieved what we have achieved because of the executive team led by our CEO and management that we have as Cathsseta. Not forgetting the staff of Cathsseta that is working very hard to make sure that the organization meets its objectives, and we also meeting all our targets, and we get clean audits that we're going to be getting in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, as we move along with our program, I'm unfortunately going to, or fortunately, still going to call the Chairperson to come and take us through the adoption of minutes. Chairperson. So they're going to be, yes, the minutes are on the screen. Can we just fly the minutes on the screen? You can just use the point. Okay.
Just focus on it. Thank you very much, Program Director. I have the pleasure of presenting the minutes of the Cathsseta dual meeting that was held on the 18th of November 2021 at 9:30. The minutes have been circulated to all members and stakeholders. I will therefore go through each page for correctness of the capturing of the minute as well as the substance of the minutes as contained. And I will look around, and I hope that you'll also be able to check on the platform to see if there are any hands that are raised to reflect comments and or questions that are being raised as we go through each page of the minute. On page 1 of the minute, are there any points or comments to be raised? I can't see a hand in here. Is there a hand on the platform perhaps? On page 2, I'm not getting an indication of any hand. On page 3, then page 4, page 5 of the minute, and page 6 of the minute. Can I get confirmation that there is no hand also on the virtual platform? Thank you. Can I then get a move for the adoption of the minutes as the true reflection of the meeting of the AGM of the Cathsseta held on the 18th of November 2021? Do I get a mover? Do I get a move? Mr. Mota moves. Thank you very much. Can I get a seconder? I get a seconder. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Colleagues, as we move with our program, we are now going to request, we are now going to request the CEO of Cathsseta, Mr. Max Tibela. Mr. Max Tibela is a strategist, passionate about policy development, adherence to bylaws, SOPs, and processes. He ensures that everyone knows what they are doing, they understand the processes, and he's a good writer, ladies and gentlemen, and he's passionate about it. Can we give Mr. Max Tibela a round of applause?
Thank you very much, Program Director. Okay, let me take this opportunity to greet the Cathsseta board led by our chairperson, Mr. Ndlovu, and all the members present, both physically and those attending virtually, and also the members of the Audit and Risk Committee, and also independent members of the other committees that are present, and also our shareholder representative, Mr. Ngubane. We appreciate your presence here, and really it makes it very, very important for us to be then presenting our reports, knowing that the shareholder is really keeping track of what we promised and what we will be reporting on. And also acknowledging my fellow CEO colleagues. I see Ms. Kiza is here from the SETA, and also the other CEOs that are participating virtually. And of course, our stakeholders that are making it for the SETA, make it possible for the SETA to really continue to exist through the payment of those levies that you are contributing. And also my colleagues, Team Cathsseta, which really has made it possible to achieve the performance that was reported a few minutes ago. It is indeed really a privilege for me to be working with such a hardworking team, I must say. So we will be presenting the performance for the previous financial year. I hope you are able to flight it. Oh, okay. So it looks, I didn't realize that there's a screen for me down here that I have to look at. Okay. So, and let me not forget to also appreciate the well-skilled competitors and the experts that made us proud. Really, indeed, we appreciate, as I'm standing here, a board chair, I feel really proud that when we came to the board and requested approval to really make a contribution to support this initiative, then at that time we were also unclear in terms of what is it that we are going to support, but we felt that indeed this is an initiative that needs to be supported. So we are proud that the team, with a short time frame they had to prepare, indeed they have competed fairly. We appreciate their presence to this. So ladies and gentlemen, I will be taking you through the non-financial part of the annual report for the 2021-22 financial year. Then the Chief Financial Officer will talk to the financial part of it. Then I will come back and talk about the key challenges that we have identified there towards the last part of the presentation. So in terms of the presentation, Part A will have strategic overview. Then there is legislative and policy mandates that govern this institution, and also the organizational structure. Then part B will talk to your, what we call program performance information, where we talk about what was planned and what has been actually achieved. Then, as I indicated, the CFO will then talk to part C. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, oh, yes. Okay, no, I'll operate, yes. So this slide, we just confirming the vision that we had as an organization during the year under review, to be a leader in skills development within our diverse sector. As it has been mentioned, that we have 6 subsectors that are so diverse in their nature. Then our mission or purpose of existing is to facilitate skills development through strategic partnerships for Cathsseta to contribute to economic growth. Then we have value statements there that have been mentioned: service excellence, accessibility, fairness and transparency, accountability, respect, integrity, and stakeholder orientation. Then these are the members of the board that we currently have. And I must indicate that as at 31 March 2022, we had 11 board members and there were 4 vacancies. So this slide, all the members appearing in this slide were serving on the board as at 31 March. Then we also have 4 members that have joined the board. The first one on this slide being Ms. Rachel Piri, Mr. Manene Tabani, Mr. Lisiba Richard Apani, and Mr. Joseph Nkanyizintuli. They joined the board in June this year. So by saying, we are also responding to the question that came as a matter arising from last year's AGM about the vacancies that we have been having, because there were 4 vacancies when we presented our report at the AGM last year. I must indicate that we have unfortunately lost 1 member in September this year through resignation, and we are currently in the process of facilitating the replacement, which is approved by the executive authority, being the Minister of Education, Science and Innovation. Then the next slide depicts the executive team of the SETA as they've been introduced by Ms. Simche. Then the legislative and policy mandates. As a creature of statute, we are governed by a plethora of laws, regulations, and policies that are reflected there. So the SETA space is a very, very complex environment, whereby you cannot really look at only one act and say this is the one that governs, as you are kept busy every day. Having gone to 2 or 3 AGMs, when I listen to my fellow CEOs presenting their reports, all of them really are just indicating that it's a busy area. You need to be knowing various pieces of legislation and regulations and policies, so there's no time for playing golf in the SETA. So it's so difficult. So because of, every new thing is coming every day, so it's a tough space. Then coming to performance, this is the slide where we believe we really have to brag a bit. As the board chair indicated, 16% increase from 73 to 89. To us, it really shows that we have moved. You see, and given the fact that we will have operated during that COVID period, whereby it was a struggle in terms of, some of the sectors or subsectors, numbers going down, some not operating, and it was a challenge. And learners dropping from time to time, we had to keep on, closing the gaps. So for us, this 89 performance is something that we believe really we have to really brag about it a bit. And I must say that for me to be bragging about it, Chair, It will not be possible without the guidance of the board and all the committees, and also the Cathsseta team, which I will request through you, Program Director, if you don't mind, to just allow me to invite the team to stand up, those who are physically here, and we give them a round of applause. So thank you, Team Cathsseta. Majority of them are connecting virtually, and they are indeed listening, that we are acknowledging the good work that the team is doing. And I must just indicate that, as I indicated, that the SETA space is a difficult one. It is a space whereby in one day at times you have to apply all leadership styles. Because at 8 o'clock you will face this challenge. You use this style. The next hour is something else. At the end of the day, you find that, oh, I've done 20 things in one day and applied all the leadership styles. So it is a tough environment. I heard my colleague from SETA yesterday, their AGM, also talking about their difficulties throughout that financial year. So then I realized that, oh, I thought we are worse off. Then it looks like the SETA landscape is just tough. You see, it's not an easy environment. But be as it may, we continue being resilient as the staff to ensure that the targets that we have set and the commitments we made in Parliament, we really achieved it. And by so saying, as you will see in this slide, we have broken down the achievements in terms of program. We have 4 programs. Program 1 being administration. Maybe let me first indicate that we had 35 performance targets in the annual performance plan. And out of the 25, we have been able to achieve, in terms of my maths, we achieved 31 of the 35. So in terms of the disaggregation, under program 1, we have 6 planned targets, and we achieved 5. With 1 that was not achieved. We will explain further when we go to the other slides, and also talk about the remedial action that we are putting in place to ensure that we don't have a repeat of that. Then under program 2, skills planning, we had 3 planned targets. We achieved all 3. We sit at 100% there. Then under learning programs, we have 18 planned targets. This is where we are sitting with the big budget there, and also the service delivery targets are within this program. Out of the 18, we achieved 15, and the 3 not achieved. Then the last program being quality assurance, we planned 3, we achieved 3. I need to just indicate here, Chair, that even though that may not be a target, we are one of those SETAs that have cleared backlogs in terms of certification. We don't have backlogs at this point in time of certificates that are pending. What we are sitting with will be a situation whereby the skills development providers and the employers submit information that at times is incomplete, and then there is delay in certification. But in terms of our process, whatever comes through, we ensure that within the prescribed time that we have put in, we issue all the certificates, we do all the due diligence. So I'm raising this because last year we had to respond to a parliamentary question that came through the DHET relating to certification, where Mr. Mvalo even pushed us to say all SETAs must ensure that by 30 November 2021, backlogs have been cleared. We indeed adhered to that deadline, and to us really, it is good that we are not sitting with a situation where learners are awaiting their certificates for a period that is undefined. So the delays will be normally with the skills development providers at this point in time. But I'll talk to that challenge that end up leading to those delays where we have complaints that are coming from time to time. Then now the breakdown of those targets I was talking about under program 1. Percentage of employees that received training as per the approved training plan. This is what we call workplace skills plan. We plan to train 50% of the staff in terms of that workplace skills plan, and we achieved that 50%. Then we had an ICT, information and communications technology strategy, which according to that strategy, we had to put together an implementation plan, as you cannot implement a strategy only in 1 year. So we have plans annually that help us to roll out the strategy. The initiatives that we put in that strategy amounted to 60%, and we achieved 75%. So meaning that we did more than we planned. Then the next target is number of quarterly governance charter reports submitted to the department. This talks about the governance on the side of the board. There's number of questions that the department asks to ensure that there's good corporate governance in the SETAs. So we've submitted all those reports on time. We just are waiting for DHET now to give us the results, because they do some assessment in terms of those reports to indicate where each SETA is sitting in terms of performance on the governance side. Then this is the target that wasn't achieved, as I was indicating. So what we planned here was to reduce the cases of unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure in prior year. So we thought when we planned, reducing it by percentage of the cases was a better way of really achieving this target. But we realized now at the end that you may have 10 cases and you reduce 9 of them, then there's 1 case that may still sit with a bigger amount of irregular expenditure. So then we revisited it in the current year to say we rather talk about reducing the value now, the monetary part of the irregular expenditure, so that if then we reduce the amount, then we will be reporting properly. So, we are a learning organization. You keep learning when it comes to these issues of planning in government. So we believe that now we'll be able to have an accurate measure that looks at the value, because we'll reduce now the millions that appeared as irregular expenditure and fruitless expenditure and wasteful in that particular year. Then the next target is the career interventions. So this is where we have to go all out and promote career development services as a SETA in terms of our offerings, and also making the communities aware of the services that we are offering, the courses that they can actually undertake in various universities of technologies, and the TVET colleges. So we have surpassed what we planned to do under this target. We had 14 and we achieved 18. Then moving to the next program, this is the skills planning program, which is overseen by the department called Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. We had 3 targets here. In terms of our sector skills plan, we ensure that, in terms of the Skills Development Act, my apologies, we ensure that we develop a sector skills plan that incorporates the skills needs for the sector. So we have been able to achieve that target and met the timelines also of submission to the Department of Education and Training. Then the next target is the percentage of research agenda outputs achieved. So part of the sector skills planning is for us to come up with a research agenda, identify areas that we are going to conduct research so that it can inform the kind of learning interventions to be implemented during the year. So we planned 50%, we have achieved that. Number of monitoring reports produced, we planned the form and we produced those reports. And I must indicate that as the board chair in his keynote address highlighted, we have these research reports on the website. Please take time and have a look at them. We researched a number of areas, and you may, as stakeholders, start really seeing where we are going as a sector in terms of those areas that we managed to conduct that research, and there's recommendations made in those reports. Same applies also to the sector skills plan. It contains a list of critical occupations that are required for the sector, so it may be important for you to spend time looking at the SSP so that you can really see where as a sector we are going. with regard to the skills that need to be produced. Then program 3, the heartbeat of the SETA. Number of unemployed learners entering learning programs. Planned here was 1,014, and we achieved 1,262, so this represents a 104%. The number of unemployed learners completing learning programs. We planned to enroll 609 learners, we achieved 869. The number of employed learners entering learning programs. Planned is 500, achieved is 710. Number of employed learners completing learning programs. Planned is 301, achieved is 333. Chair, as you have indicated, you will bear with us. We're still in that number crunching mode. You can, see in terms of our report, we talk about the learners trained. We are not going beyond to really check as to where they are, but I'm glad to just indicate that as part of the research work indicated earlier, we also conducted track and tracer studies to just trace in terms of the learners in various programs. Where are they? Then we select certain programs and trace. Where are these learners? And some we pick up that, the challenge is that one of employers also not absorbing, the bigger numbers. So, but we have really taken note of the issues that the chair has raised with regard to us moving away from now the output space and looking to outcomes so that we can indeed going forward see the actual results being realized over medium to long term. Then on the artisan program, we enrolled 261. We planned to enroll 261. We achieved 263. Number of employed learners that were brought into a program for recognition of prior learning, 64. We achieved 99. Number of unemployed learners granted bursaries. These are the continuing students. We planned 150 and we achieved 553. So why the number has gone up here is that in a SETA space, you also reported the numbers that are continuing. Some will have come in prior years, and then that is why you will plan X number of learners, and there's also some that are coming from the previous years, and then the number will always go up. The number of partnership projects implemented with TVET colleges, CETs, universities, and sector employers and rural communities. We planned 48, we achieved 58. Number of SETA offices established and maintained in TVET colleges. I must indicate that some of these targets are the targets that the Department of Higher Education will require all SETAs to reflect them in their annual performance plan. They may look like, they are irrelevant, but for the department, they are important because the department expects the SETAs to roll out services to the people and not only operate from Gauteng where the head offices are located. Hence, you see this target regarding, SETAs opening offices and partnering with TVET colleges where we normally, use them as our regional offices. Number of CET lecturers awarded skills development programs. We planned 20 and we achieved 20. Number of CET learners accessing IET programs. We planned 30. We achieved 0 on this one. Number of SMMEs supported through training interventions. We planned 95, we achieved 96. Number of cooperatives supported through training interventions. We planned 4 and we achieved 4. Number of people trained in entrepreneurial skills, planned 10, achieved 10. Number of people trained on entrepreneurship and supported to start their businesses, planned 10, we achieved 0. Number of CBOs supported NGOs, NPOs through skills training. We planned 6, we achieved 9. Number of worker-initiated training This relates to your federations, trade unions, and we planned for, we achieved a 0. Number of mandatory grants approved. We planned to pay back to 1,080 companies, and we achieved 1,090. Just to talk to those challenges or the reasons for not achieving in those 3 programs. It has been a struggle, in terms of us getting stakeholders to really work with us. As you can see, those targets will have required, collaboration. And the partnerships have been coming out slowly, but we have now ramped up in terms of, pushing and collaborating with various stakeholders, and also revised our discretionary grant policies to allow us not only to use the traditional method of advertising, to get proposals. So we also then receive unsolicited proposals, and we can also approach various stakeholders to say, this is the funding that is available for various learning areas. Can you please submit proposals? Then we look at them, and then we continuously fund. And we believe that will go a long way, Program Director, in ensuring that we don't find ourselves at the end of the financial year sitting in a space whereby we come again and lament the issue of stakeholders not working with us. So then under Program 4, Quality Assurance, percentage of learner completion achievement reports or certificates, then we planned 100, we have achieved 100 here, as I indicated earlier. Number of reports on education, training, and development practitioners. 4 plans were reported to be produced, and they were produced. The number of reports on learning programs evaluation, we planned 4, we achieved 4. The number of occupational part of full qualifications reviewed, we planned 12, we achieved 13. It looks like, this is a continuation. Then the next target there is number of external integrated summative assessment reports. We planned 2, we achieved 2. Number of performance information reports produced, planned 4, we achieved 4. Number of evaluation reports, planned 2, we achieved 2. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings to an end the non-financial report in terms of the planned 35 targets that we had during the year under review. I will then hand over to the program director to get my colleague to deal with the other part. Then I will come back to deal with the slide that talks to the challenges at the end. Thank you, program director.
Okay, thank you very much, CEO. I'm not going to waste time, but I just want to say, like I had said before, and the CEO also has said, that we have done a lot as Cathsseta. As you can see from Program 3, we really had about 25 targets. From the 25 targets, ladies and gentlemen, 19 were overachieved. I think we need a round of applause for that. We may not have achieved some of them, but the ones that we have achieved, from 25, 19, we went over and above. And indeed, this is because of the staff of Cathsseta, that is working very hard to make sure that we indeed achieve what we had planned for as a SETA. Ladies and gentlemen, also as we now proceed with our program, I'm going to call our CFO, a public finance corporate service governance expert, who's working with numbers very easy. When you go to him and you speak to him about numbers, he will say, don't worry, you do it this way. Even the calculations, Excel spreadsheet, we put them to him. He worked at AG as well, and you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that indeed he has 2 caps. Before audit starts, we go to him and say, CFO, what do you think AG will say when they come? Am I on the right track? So this is our CFO, ladies and gentlemen. Can we please give him a round of applause? As he is going to be giving us the finance of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to do the protocols. I think the CEO has done that for me. But thank you very much. You are putting me under pressure, Program Director. I thank you for the introduction. My part just deals with the financial report of the organization in terms of the reflections of the year that has gone by. Okay, so I want to start off here. Firstly, to all our stakeholders. You may remember this slide from last year, but we would like to thank you for all your contributions in terms of the skills development levies. We will not be able to do the business that we're doing without your contributions. So this is effectively how the funding flows in terms of the various contributions from the stakeholders within our subsectors as to how they flow into the SETA. I'm not going to break it down, but I think it's self-explanatory. So let me start here. In the previous year, of course, as the AG is mandated to conduct all the audits, so I took just a historic view to paint you a picture so that you are able to have an appreciation of where we came from and where we are at this point. The chair has spoken about something that we are working towards, and that is still in the oven in terms of the current financial year. But if you look at this slide, the AG looks at three aspects when they do an audit. The first one is the financial statements, where then they express an opinion. And you'll see there, it's green. So we've been in that space for the last 3 years, actually even longer. And we just need to maintain this space because the opinion ultimately that they express is the opinion that we're looking for, which is the unqualified audit opinion. The annual performance report that the CEO has just presented now, I can also confirm the fact that in the AG's report, they confirm that this report is useful and reliable. And you'll also see that in the last 3 years, that has been the case. However, there are few working areas in this particular section whereby, the evidence that we presented to the AG, in line with what we would have presented in the report, there were then discrepancies. So you'll see there, I have a comment that says maintain, improve in orange. Improvement is just the aspects of ensuring that what we report on is properly supported by the evidence that would have been collated during the year. So that's something that we need to work on in terms of the improvement of this area. The last section that they look at is compliance in general to key legislation that you would have seen the slide earlier in terms of the plethora of legislation that is applicable. But in the main, PFMA is one of them. So if you look at this, in 2019-20 financial year, there were 3 findings that the AG raised from a compliance point of view. Expenditure management, procurement and contract management, as well as in the area of financial statements. If you look at the trajectory, you can see that when you go into 2021, the number of compliance areas reduced from that 3 to 2, where then it was expenditure management and financial statements. And then in the last year that we are reporting on now, we only had one area around the financial statements, which is what then they reported on. So this is what I mean when I'm saying that the team is busy cooking, and we are busy cooking and making sure that as this year ends, we are able, Chair, to get to a space where we don't have that compliance finding being there. And mainly here, it's all about evidence as well, and just ensuring that the reporting and the transactions that we have reflected on during the year, the reconciliations, the underlying information, it's properly collated and it's able to then support the numbers that we have. So in the main, the AG raised disclosure-related findings. The numbers that you see in the statement of financial performance, position, and so forth did not change as a result of the audit. And the required action here, as I'm saying, it's then we've been stagnant in this area, and we need to then improve. Having said this, I'm gonna go into the numbers. And the reason I started here with the AG is that when I talk about the numbers, you then have appreciation of the fact that the numbers have been audited, and the AG has said that the numbers fairly present the state of affairs of the organization, and hence you can then make your decisions around those. Okay, so from a financial performance point of view, at high level, we've been on a recovery from the pandemic of COVID-19. So the numbers there are just a testament to that fact. You'll remember that in the 2021 financial year, as you'll see there, the revenues of the organization took a dip as the result of the impact of COVID-19 in our subsectors and affecting various stakeholders. So you'll see that now revenue is up 38% in this last financial year, and accordingly, of course, then the operations of the organization from an expenditure point of view would also then adjust that, because that's our top line. That's where we measure ourselves against. And when you take those two into consideration, you'll see that we have a surplus for the financial year. This is consistent in the SETA landscape. There is a lot, of course, Ms. Mpye, that we still need to do because we are a public entity. So we want to strive to ensure that we keep the surpluses to a minimum, because we are required to spend these funds that we receive. But in all these three line items, I'm essentially saying that there is an up trajectory, as you can see, revenue, expenditure, and as well as the surplus for the year increased significantly from the year before, which was the COVID year. From a financial position point of view, we are a very liquid organization. Again, this is consistent in the SETA landscape. Looking at the capital structure of the organization, you are able to see that we have accumulated reserves of close to 550 million. And all those are cash backed. It's money in the bank. So you look at the cash and cash equivalents at the asset section, we closed this financial year with 608 million rands in the bank. And again, the challenge, I guess, here, it's also how then we come up with programs quick enough to be able to then use what we are allocated for during the financial year, and also then dip into the surplus funds that we have. Technically, the challenge that is also there is just around how we do budgets in terms of when you look at when we get to do the original budget of the organization, and this is across the public sector. We are not required or we are not allowed to be incorporating in our budget at the initial stage, the surplus funds, because there's a process that then has to be undertaken for those funds to be put into the budget. The only time that we are able to put them in the budget is during the adjustment budget process, which is the process that gets underway from now on. So once you have then gone through that process, you effectively, in terms of the programs that you would have come up with, you have December and the last 3 months, being January up to March, to effectively implement them. So technically, you have a challenge to be able to spend that amount of money within that 4 months that is left. So I just wanted to explain that. It's something that is in legislation. However, it potentially also creates a challenge in terms of ensuring that, you know, the funds that you have, especially the surplus funds, get spent. The commitments that we have from a discretionary point of view, we've been hard at work. You can see that from the year before, we've managed to reduce those commitments by 21%. You look at the movement for the year, where we've managed to push that up by 86% from the year prior. And of course, we want to ensure that also this comes down so that this money then gets out of the bank. It's not sitting in. So a portion of the surplus funds, it's essentially towards these commitments that you're seeing here. In the administration program, Program 1, as the CEO presented, we had a target about reduction of irregular as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Unfortunately, we had 1 or 2 instances of irregular expenditure, but in the main, if you look at the bottom line there, which is the closing balance, you can see that we went at length during this financial year to reduce that irregular expenditure within the governance framework that National Treasury allows. So the board approved the removal of about 59.7 million from the irregular expenditure in line with the guidance that National Treasury issues. And this is then an endeavor that we continue to ensure that this expenditure is kept to a minimum. As for fruitless and wasteful, is the contra. We had few more instances with the history that we had where, you know, operationally there were certain matters that came to our attention during the financial year that related to years prior, and when then one put them against the fruitless and wasteful expenditure framework, they came up to that they are actually fruitless and wasteful. So those are the instances that resulted in us having an increase in the fruitless and wasteful expenditure line. I think one thing maybe that I may have to draw your attention to, it's the losses from criminal conduct. You'll see there's 94,000 that was incurred as a result of a criminal conduct where we were subjected to a fraudulent process where some fraudsters, let me call them that, they were able to infiltrate our ICT systems, and as a result of that, we ended up having to make a payment to an employer under the disguise that we thought that was really an employer that we work with in terms of our learning programs. So that's one of the instances that we've had. But we have strengthened the ICT environment as well as the finance side of things in terms of just ensuring that when certain things happens around payments, we have all our processes in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again. So this is then from a fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and then it concludes the part that I'm dealing with, CEO, on the finance section. You said that you will come back. Program Director, back to you.
Thank you, CFO. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, he makes numbers simple. you get to understand the numbers if you're not a number person. Now going to call the CEO to speak on the challenges that we have as Cathsseta before we take questions from our stakeholders online and those that are in with us here. Thank you, CEO.
Thanks, Program Director. Chairperson and board members, we thought proactively we should highlight areas that will have been raised throughout the year by stakeholders rather than being reactive and wait for them to ask questions. So there's 3 areas that have been highlighted here. The first one is on the industry-funded legacy learner registrations. As I indicated that we don't have backlogs on the certificates, but we have picked up that now you have instances where learners will be waiting for certificates, and now the delay in terms of the certification to be done is the stakeholders not providing accurate information. So, and that has been a challenge for the organization, and we have put together 2 interventions. One was to repurpose some positions internally and ensure that we have 2 staff members that are dedicated to work in this area and ensure that we cleanse the data so that we can move towards getting those certificates issued. So we are making a plea with the stakeholders here to say, please help us get all the relevant documentation, clean it up to ensure that as and when it is inserted into the system, we are able to proactively also or quickly process and get the certification done. Because if we sit with that information in its current form, it makes it difficult for us to also rely on it. And we would also want to really report big numbers as a SETA, because when you look at our annual report, it may appear as if we are sitting with millions but reporting on less numbers. So if the information can really be accurate, we will gladly then, talk about it in the annual report and to show that within our 6 subsectors, we are doing more than expected. So we will be convening workshops with all those stakeholders countrywide to ensure that we work together and address this problem. Then the next one is the skills development providers also really not ensuring that we work in terms of how we are supposed to work. And as you can see, this challenge talks about the SDPs enrolling learners through the declaration of intent process and also quickly uploading assessments. So there are step-by-step processes that need to be followed, but if then you circumvent the processes, you pick up challenges whereby, for instance, your start and end date may be appearing to be shortening the period of that learnership that will have been for a particular period. And now we are making this plea to say, for us now, to really get to that space where we can also certificate or even approve those reports that you are uploading, let us work together, do the step-by-step processes. We are trying our best to be efficient as a SETA. We know historically there might have been challenges across all SETAs in terms of certification. As I indicated, we are moving towards a situation where we don't want to sit with backlogs. Let's work together. We will also convene workshops so that we can really go to the root causes and identify the root causes that exist. And we come together now and identify remedial actions so that we work together. We would like to really report next year, a different picture which says that everything is in order. You get into our system, you do this and that. Within a short space of time, we are able to approve. Now, the elephant in the room, payment of service providers within 30 calendar days. So this is a legislated requirement in terms of the PFMA of 1999 as amended. So we want to also openly indicate that there has been challenges during the year under review with regard to disbursing the payments on time. I'm glad to report that with the support of the dynamic CFO that we are having, and Ms. Mche, the Executive Manager Learning Programs, we've been able to sit now and identify root causes. And we picked up that the manner in which the system and the processes were designed were cumbersome. And what we did now, so maybe to simplify this explanation, there were instances where you find that the stakeholders will submit all those reports and documentation required, particularly within the discretionary grant part, and also the invoice at the same time. And you find that whilst we are still validating the information provided, the 30 days now is lost along that. At the time that the invoices are moving from learning programs after validation, going to the finance team to process, the finance team start counting 30 days from the day on which they receive the invoice. And we end up sitting now with more than 30 days, and we thought we were correct, and we realized that no, we needed to revise the processes. So what we have done now is that we only allow the stakeholders to bring invoices once we have used. First, submit all your reports and the evidence. Then we validate everything. And once that has been done, we quickly revert back to say, everything is in order. Issue the invoice so that we can stick to the 30 days. And the powers have been devolved to the regions to really deal with this processing so that we fast track this payment process. So we hope by the end of this financial year, we will have really arrested this problem, and as we cannot afford to sit with an audit finding with regard to non-compliance with PFMA in respect of paying, your service providers within 30 days. So these are the three challenges that we have highlighted in the report, and we believe working together with our stakeholders, we will definitely overcome them. Thanks very much, Program Director.
Thank you, CEO. Ladies and gentlemen, with the issue of a certificate, as you may recall, I think in 2019, Cathsseta procured a new system wherein we had to request our stakeholders not to register learners on the system. And after some time, we opened a new system. So the legacy learners that we're talking about are learners that were trained in the period where Cathsseta did not have a system. We are now going to be taking questions, and I'm going to direct them this way, that we take questions that are related to performance report, and then we'll come to the finance report, and then we'll speak about challenges. If you may allow me, I will check if there are hands, where people want to raise questions in the boardroom where we are, and then we'll also take questions online. I'm going to request that maybe if it's possible, some people can use the chat box, and the capable management of Cathsseta will be able to respond. We have our regional managers, our ETQA manager, our learning programs manager, who will be able to respond on some of the questions that are coming on the chat box. Now opening for questions, ladies and gentlemen, on performance information. I have one hand in the boardroom in the hall, and Secretariat, please help with the hands on the virtual. I'm going to take the question. Please introduce yourself, sir, and the company you're coming from before you say the question. Thank you.
Greetings, board members, Mr. Chairperson, the CEO, and all the management of Cathsseta, staff members, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Thamsanqa Maqubela. I come from the South African Council for Graduates. This is a question and a comment. Let me start with a comment. Congratulations to Cathsseta. We probably wanted to write this SETA off. from administration to a lot of challenges. It's really amazing that this board, together with the team, have been able to turn things around, and I think that deserves a round of applause. We are stakeholders, but also we are partners with the Cathsseta. On a light note, I'm disappointed that I couldn't run the Comrades Marathon this year. I had a surgical operation, but I'm healing quite now. On page 51 of the report, the annual report, it is quite encouraging, Chairperson, to note that there's been a very, very good attendance, which for me is leading by example by board members. And I think things like these start from here. If the accounting authority members take their work seriously, it shows. So what I would like to know is, how are you going to sustain this good performance in terms of attendance, particularly the audit and the risk committee? And I've seen also on the finance committee, there has also been 100%. Question 2, if we can turn to page 58. The issue particularly of that relates to the question is in relation to human resources, where in several quarters there's been a need for improvement. And the risk rating is medium. I come from a school of thought that says you can't manage people. We manage what they do, we relate with them. So what systems are to be put in place to ensure that that is reduced from medium to low? Because really that talks to the most important asset this SETA has. It's human capital. These are men and women that make sure that unemployed graduates, that stakeholders of this SETA get paid in time. My final question, oh no, that would be for finance. Chairperson, I'll end there. Thank you. Those are the 2 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Makubela. We don't have another question in the House. We're going to check from the people that are attending virtually. I do see some of the questions on the chat box. I'm going to read the first one. I'm going to at least take about 5 questions and we'll respond. The first one is that, hi all, it's Siyabonga Dube from PSL. Can I just ask that we be given through feedback on declined discretionary grants because they seem to be unclear at times. Reasons of saying budgetary constraints doesn't make any sense, then why we are asked to apply. Can we move to the next one? A number of providers applied for discretionary grant, but were declined, and the reason provided was incorrect paperwork. However, what incorrect paperwork was not specified. So how can the error be prevented going forward by the provider if they do not know the error? This was Jennifer, I think. Carol N. says, do we anticipate that all surpluses will be used? If not, how much do we think will be redirected to the fiscus? This is a finance one. Mr. CFO will respond later when we take the other questions. Can we move? All Africa Media. Can we go to there's 2 questions there. Can you please get rid of SIMs as clearly our documents are being tampered with? Number 1. Number 2, can the documents not take 10 to 12 months also raised the issue of how you call police for stakeholders coming needing assistance. Read my comments, please. I am reading your comments, Mpho. I'm going to take the last one. I see, we've read the Siyabonga's one. And can we go up? Mr. Dube's one, we read it. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm going to request the chairperson to speak to the first one from Mr. Makubela regarding the comments he made with regards to the board and the ARC. And I'm also going to request Ms. Dimpho Pungwayo to speak to the qualifications one, I think, or it's the learning programs application process. No, it's Mr. Motlatla and Mr. Hobengu online, who will be responding to the discretionary grants application process of letters of response. Just to clarify, when we're saying insufficient funds, what do we mean? When we say documents were not incorrect, what do we mean? And also CEO will speak to the issue of the police from Mpho. And I think our IT manager will also speak about the issue of SIMs. Yes, in that order, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Mr. Makubela, it's not an easy, your two questions are possibly going to be the most difficult to respond to. But the one to which one can simply say, you know, when God is on your side, you rarely come wrong. The one thing we're lucky with is that God just somehow put a great team of people together. You know, the most important thing for boards, and I've served in a number of boards, I continue to serve in boards, but the most critical thing for boards for me is the ethical radar screen. If you have a team that has got their ethical base right, you're done. 50% of your job is done. So the Minister of the Department of Higher Education and Innovation had a very critical role to play, but God's hand came in there. Because I can't really explain how else it came about that we sit with the team we've got. Having said that, the next thing I think that becomes important is for the collective to always remind one another why they are there. And I think the biggest thing that has made us to get to where we are is, firstly, we got there when there were too many challenges. So when you come in at a base zero or low base of performance, it's easy to actually show a change quickly. The challenge is sustaining and growing that change. So this is not time for us to really be ecstatic and happy and, you know, feel great and begin to be arrogant about the achievements, because we found things not really kosher. And in a number of ways, what we needed to do was to just get the basics right and then get started. What is going to be critical for this board from now on is to ensure that the attendance of meetings is retained, but then the quality of what we get out of those meetings is improved. So I'm of the view that if God continues to be with us and we continue to keep our eyes on why we are in the SETA, we will not falter in the next 2.5 years remaining. Or is it 3 or 4? How many years remaining for this board? Huh? 2.5 years remaining. So this is our midterm review, as it were. And I think I really can say that I'm thrilled to hear a response like that, because every time when I look at the amount of time, the effort, the energy, the diligence, the commitment, the dedication that these members give, I always say, even in the board meetings, I'm really privileged to serve in this board and lead, and it's one of the best boards I've ever served in. That doesn't mean we don't have challenges or difficulties, but it really is one of the best boards I have ever had the privileges of serving and leading. Having said that, I think the other good thing we have is when you get to not, what's the right word? Not have to think twice about what you have to say to management and executives. And every one of us know their role. You know, when I got to the department, to government for the first time in 1999, the man that recruited me said, "Lalela Kacheni, there are 2 things you're going to have to learn to do for me. Number 1, and I'm coming in as Chief Director Mbomv in DOE. He says to me, the one thing you must do is you must take off your academic hat. This is not a university. I was coming from a lecturing environment. So your theories must end here somewhere. When you get into this office, you must apply them, but they must not rule and guide you. Here, it's policies that guide us." It was a shock. The second one, he said, "You are employed here as a professional. We are bringing technical expertise. Your job is to present through me to the DG, to the minister, the professional advice. You don't own that advice. When you've given it to them, it's theirs to see what they do with it. So never confuse your role as a bureaucrat and a technocrat to that of a politician. Never try to be a politician. Remain a technocrat." What we have the pleasure of realizing here, most of the time, not always, we still work in progress, is that management gets to know when their role has come to an end for argumentation and they must take orders from oversight. The day that is lost, there will be a challenge. For as long we can debate and engage on issues, it's fine. But there is someone finally that has responsibility, and that must take decisions, and that decision must lie with them. Defer to those people at all times. And don't own the view when you say, "I'm telling you this because," no, I've told you, I've done my job. It's now your responsibility to take it forward. I have to say, sometimes we make mistakes in this country and think all of the problems that we are making are coming from a lot of issues. They actually come from one thing and one thing only. We have lost sight of what it is that determines the place for who, for what, for when. It's no mistake that there's a hierarchy. It's not an error. As a society, we have to go back to the basics and know there is a board which reports to a minister. So if I'm a CEO, my job is to advise the board for the board to advise the minister. Finish and clear. And as an oversight structure, we must always know that we do not have a responsibility to micromanage executives and administration. The reason they are employed and qualified the way they are, at least they should be if you selected them correctly, is because you must entrust them with the responsibility to carry out the job. You also don't want somebody always over your shoulder looking at you. But if you have not done well, you must admit that you haven't done well. The finance side of things is in great hands. You saw this young man that stood here. Yeah, he's the pride of the selection committee of this board at some stage. I always pride myself for the work that he does. But we also have a massive team that he works with, which I think, I don't know, gives him just as much respect as we could hear from his executives. And you can pick up for our board. So there is something that is happening there that is making this organization work. I only hope that the people will sustain a bit longer than is currently the case. Added to that is the chairpersons of the committees. Because as a board, we meet once in 3 months. Our chairpersons of boards do all of the dirty work. They slog it out. Melisutu and Lubanga, who is not here, are our 2 pillars when it comes to performance. Mr. Khaushubelwe just left. He was with us here. Whenever things get to be rough and we're not sure where to go, we know that our chairpersons will take it on and guide. And once again, thank you very much, Tammy, for the beautiful comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to request Mr. Motlatla to respond to the 3 questions regarding learning programs. Mr. Motlatla?
Thank you, Program Director. I'll be responding to the 3 questions which spoke to the application process, the response letters in regards to the budgetary constraints, and the incorrect paperwork. I think firstly, before I sort of address the questions, I think we need to acknowledge that we're dealing with the supply and demand when it comes to the discretionary grants. Earlier on, the CFO presented the increase in the levy contribution, which cannot be looked at in isolation. We need to also take into cognizance that when the budget is available, then the targets in terms of discretionary grants increase. Now, coming to the application process, also annually what we do as the learning programs is we conduct workshops, and we recently developed the application guidelines, of which critically identify what are the compliance documents, which are very critical towards an application before it gets evaluated. Then it's the evaluation process, and then it's obviously the outcome. Now, the outcome that particularly speaks to the budget constraints is directly tied to the budget. And as well as that, when we advertise, we do indicate the provincial split, as we need to be equitable in all the provinces as well as to all the stakeholders of Cathsseta. So the budget constraints literally just basically mean that we have overly exhausted the targets that we have met, particularly in the provinces, particularly in the subsectors, and there are no more funds available to then allocate. So when your response says that your outcome is unsuccessful due to budget constraints, it means that there's nothing wrong with the application, with your application. However, we've exhausted that particular learning program, and we cannot allocate what we don't have in terms of the funds for that particular program. Then we come to the question on the incorrect paperwork. So the incorrect paperwork, I go back again to the development of the application guidelines. There's one area which is the compliance, and we cannot compromise on compliance. Further to that, as a SETA internally, we do look at the process and try and make things simpler for our stakeholders. Compliance is very critical, and we cannot compromise on that. If you look at the previous discretionary grants, there's one area that affected the discretionary grants, which was the tax compliance. And we saw a lot of stakeholders being rejected based on the fact that the compliance status was not in order. However, we made away with that and dealt with the mere fact that these funds are discretionary, and we basically need to make them available to our stakeholders in terms of the skills development. Now, going back to the application guidelines, there's a section on the application guidelines and the system that particularly mentions what is required for compliance And if you fail that particular section, then your application will not go to the next stage of evaluation. So it's very important that, I want to stress this, that colleagues attend the workshops that we have every financial year. Over and above, you are able to contact Cathsseta during the application window and ask sort of for assistance in terms of what should I look out for in terms of compliance. And Cathsseta is continuously engaging with stakeholders during the application window, during the financial year, and trying to make sure that we limit as much as possible in terms of compliance. And we definitely continuously improve through the obvious engagements that we have with our stakeholders and the workshops that we conduct, because it's very good that we get that participation to try and engage and improve the process of discretionary grants so that it's accessible to everybody. But of importance, I come back to the mere fact that it's a supply and demand, and we also present that in the workshops in terms of what was requested versus the budget that's available. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Motlatla. There's an issue of Cathsseta responding after 10 to 12 months. Can you speak to that as well? From All Africa, before I go to the CEO.
Yes, thank you, Program Director. In terms of the response, we will definitely work and try and improve in terms of responding to our stakeholders sooner rather than later. Without diving too much into the technicalities that delayed the process of evaluation, we will definitely work to improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Motlatla. CEO, on the issue, or should we go to ICT before we come to you? Yes. Mr. Cathsseta? Can you just flight that question on the ICT that, they're saying we must, SIMS, yes. We must get away with the SIMS system. So our IT manager will respond to this one.
Good afternoon or good day to everyone. The question is coming from All Africa Foundation. They are saying Cathsseta must get rid of SIMs because their documents are being tampered with. As the ICT manager, I would like to assure All Africa that our systems are in place. When they place or submit documents to our system, they get to the right hands and they are being attended by the right people. No one is able to intercept on those documents and tamper to them. So if they've got any further questions, they can email us directly, then we can look at the case that they might be presenting to us. But for now, the system is very clear in terms of the security, and it's being audited, and we can produce the audit logs of people that can access documents that are currently on the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cathsseta. We are running out of time. We're supposed to finish at 12, and I see it's about 11:52. I'm going to take the last comments on the chat box, and that will include the finance ones, and then we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Can I just read the other questions that are there, colleagues? And management from Cathsseta. Yes, I forgot about the CEO. Please just make your response short for us to manage time. CEO, I forgot to request you to respond to the issue of police.
Thanks, Program Director. Perhaps before I talk to that, I need to just indicate that the allegation made by All Africa, it's serious. Perhaps outside this, we'll have to engage with them where they can provide evidence to pinpoint to us having tampered with this, because we have interacted with them several times and encouraged them to use the system, and even said where they are struggling, they can come to our office, then we'll help them with the application process. We have done so when we were still in Killarney, early last year, before we moved from Killarney to Midrand. So we are still making that commitment. During the application process, if they struggle to transact, our offices are open through arrangement. we can, assist them, you see, in terms of really getting their applications done. Just to avoid a situation where the system now will be blamed when you'll find that only maybe 1 out of 1,000 applicants have a problem. So, and we also have a help desk wherein if a stakeholder during the time of applications are struggling, they send a query there. Then the help desk team will attend to their query. So we'll encourage them to also use that platform to escalate their challenges relating to the system. Then coming to the issue of the police, I must indicate that we live in a constitutional democracy as a country, and where the Constitution allows people or, provides rights to every person. But the challenge is when now we exceed the limitations of our rights, where you come into the office, especially this case being mentioned. We brought in police because a group of concerned stakeholders came to the Cathsseta, and this will have happened even when we were in Killarney, where some of us had to sneak out of the office running away because we were going to be kept hostage. So now when it happened in Killarney in June last year, a group came and staged a sit-in and slept in the office, and even now manhandling the security officials. And that became a problem in the morning when staff members and the employees from the Auditor General's office came in. They were held hostage, and we negotiated for the better part of the day with those people to leave the office. They refused. And that's when even police couldn't help until we enlisted the services of a law firm to quickly go to High Court and get an interdict to remove those officials. And they were only removed the following day at 3 a.m. and they even caused damage to property. So what we're doing, we're protecting the lives of the staff that was in the office, because the security couldn't do anything to them. And even police were refusing to take them out of the office. So what we did is something that was lawful, because we went to court, we obtained an interdict. And we even post that, still interacted with the same stakeholders. Ola Africa is one of them. We have had continuous meetings, and we continue to engage with them. We will not stop engaging. We say, let us do things within the confines of the law. And if we agree on a meeting, let the meeting be the one that we will feel free also to meet with them in the offices or anywhere, not be threatened, because this is where it becomes problematic. So, but we are very much determined to continue engaging with this subsector as and when a need arises, and when there's proper arrangement to meet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. We have, I forgot another question from Mr. Makubela about risk. I'm going to request our risk manager to respond to it. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm also going to request that we request Cathsseta management to respond on the chat, because we're running out of time. So any questions that is on the chat box, we're going to be responding. The meeting will continue with us responding to the questions. I'm requesting the House to allow me not to read them and just request Cathsseta management to respond on the chat box. I'm taking the last one, the last response from our risk manager, and we'll continue with our program. Ms. Babengu?
Thank you, Program Director. I would be responding to the question that was posed on page 51, which talks to the internal control. The question was whether do we have mechanism to ensure that we improve where the controls were not, where controls need improvement. So in Cathsseta, for each and every audit review, we develop an action plan, and we track the action plan. This action plan gets to be reported on monthly basis to the management meetings, to the ARC as well as one of the standing item, because they want to see if there were findings that were raised, what is it that management is doing to improve the situation. So what I'm trying to say is that for each and every review that has been undertaken by internal audit, we develop action plans. These action plans, management take them very seriously. We discuss them on monthly basis, on quarterly basis. These are taken to our Audit and Risk Committee. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Mabengu. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to go back to our agenda. I have taken the liberty as the host to include our boss, which is Department of Higher Education, represented by the Chief Director, Mr. Ngubani, who's going to be giving the SETA a message of support. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really encouraging, to see Department of Higher Education supporting us, coming to us, to speak to us, to give us words of encouragement for us to continue to strive and to thrive and achieve more than we have achieved in the previous financial year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Thank you. Greetings to the Chairperson, Mr. Ndlovu Kachin, the Chairperson of the Accounting Authority, the Accounting Authority members. Greetings to you, the CEO of Cathsseta, Mr. Tibela, all SETA CEOs who are connected visually, and the ones present. I see Ms. Kukumkize, CEO of Insurance SETA, the stakeholders, the Cathsseta management team, and all team members of the SETA. If the AG is here, I must also greet AG, a special greeting to AG, because they are the ones who are auditing us. So I can't afford to omit AG. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Let me also appreciate the invitation to this AGM. With the AGM, we are taking stock of how far we have come and gone. This happens annually. So I just wanted to make a reflection from the department's perspective. Given that we have a mammoth task of implementing the white paper for post-school education and training system, maybe to firstly indicate that with the promulgation of the white paper on PSET in 2013, we were given a roadmap of how the education, training, and skills development system should look like in order to respond to the needs of the world of work and also to contribute in the economy at large. I must hasten to indicate that skills development is a stakeholder-based responsibility. So without our stakeholders, there's nothing we can do. So the success of the PSET and the success of this sector in particular cannot happen without the involvement and the active contribution by all stakeholders. Stakeholders, you must not underestimate your important role in shaping up this sector. You must think about the value chain of how the contribution you make goes up to the level of shaping up the economy at large. Starting from the personal development plans of the employees within your organizations, or the skills auditing that assist you to identify the training gaps, feeding to the workplace skills plans of your organizations, which also gets submitted to the SETA. And that submission of your workplace skills plan, I must also indicate that you mustn't look at it as a compliance measure for you just to apply for mandatory grants. It is quite important because it makes a contribution to the sector skills plan of your sector at large. It provides the labor market intelligence so that there will be an understanding of what your sector needs in order to contribute to the economy and address the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. That also goes further beyond what I've just mentioned, you have a duty to make a contribution to the National Skills Development Plan of the country. Currently now, there is even a need to make sure that you put more efforts given the economic situation which was affected by the COVID-19. So as a department, we are given a responsibility to come up with a skill strategy to support economic reconstruction and recovery plan, which we cannot do without your involvement. Coming to the state of the SETA governance, I'm happy to see a stable picture of this SETA. This organization is very stable in terms of governance. Looking at the 4 years ago, or let me say 5 years, deliberately so, because starting from 2017 to 2018, we had attained a clean audit, CEO. 2017, 2018, and then the subsequent years later, 18, 19, 19, 20, up to the last audit, you attained an unqualified audit with findings. And you are quite aware that it was due to your financial statements. But I must appreciate that you are able to keep the ship afloat, Chairperson, the board, the team of the SETA and the stakeholders. If you have a question of why I'm mentioning the stakeholders, if your stakeholders do not give you proper information, that will assist to provide AG with information that will enable them to assess the state of your financial management, the performance information, its usefulness and reliability, and also compliance with the regulatory frameworks, you won't be able to achieve what you have achieved. So this achievement is a collective responsibility. In fact, we must be clapping hands for that. You must not be shy to own up of, you must not be scared to own up of what you have achieved. But you have got now a challenge to keep up the good work, because you have set a benchmark. Coming to the issue of SETA performance again, your performance is going well. I must commend again the team, the board, the SETA team and the stakeholders, because your SETA cannot be able to achieve this 86 performance without the involvement of stakeholders. So these partnerships must be sustained in order to make an impact. I want to mention that it is very important that when we have a mammoth task of a national responsibility like skills development, we must always be cognizant of the fact that governance must be complemented by performance. I know that in other entities or others will be excited and only focus on attaining the clean audit. But from the practical point of view, or ideally, we must look at both the governance and the performance, because what does it mean to attain a good audit when the performance is not good? So we must always be cognizant of that. I must also appreciate you for what you have done, attaining a performance of up to 86%, more so given where we've come from as a country. Sorry, 89? Not 86? Or 609 in Toyota. It depends on. Okay, sure. 89. I think I must congratulate you for that, because we've come from a very difficult situation and economic climate. I can imagine how hard it has been to implement your skills development initiatives where other employers or the industry were downsizing, closing, or even restructuring to maintain liquidity. So the 89% is a good performance, and you must keep on doing that. Given the PSET system that I've already mentioned, we have a duty to ensure that we implement its imperatives by implementing the white paper by implementing the National Skills Development Plan. There are 8 outcomes which we are all expected to look into. I'm not going to highlight all of them, but one of them is the identification of occupations in high demand. I think we have a duty to make sure that all our interventions are responsive to the challenges we are facing as a country. So in order to ensure that we provide the training programs that are relevant, we must know what occupations are needed by the industry. Hence, we have to identify occupations in high demand by conducting the labor market intelligence to establish the scarce and critical skills and those skills that are needed to grow the economy. And we must ensure that we balance the demand and the supply. Outcome 2, linking the education in the workplace, must do away with the traditional education system where one will spend 3 years in the lecture room or lecture hall without even knowing who the employer is or how even the employer entrance looks like. I know the majority of us are coming from that system, but we must do away with that because it creates the challenges in terms of the articulation and also addressing the unemployment. So we need to link the education in the workplace with all the stakeholders converge here. We must take up that challenge of making sure that we assist the PSET system. We open up the workplaces. We engage with the SETAs for funding. We engage with the higher education institutions and provide them with the workplaces to place their learners in order to acquire practical experience. The third outcome, improving the levels of skills in the South African workforce. That one I'm not going to dwell on much on that, but suffice to emphasize that we are part of the global market. We are part of the global community. So we must always make sure that we upskill our workforce so that we remain relevant and compete internationally. In fact, that also talks to your role or our role that you have played in supporting the World Skills International competitions. We mustn't underestimate how important is our participation to the World Skills competitions. I'm quite aware that you were there. You're part of the global platform. And you must not be tired because of the outcomes of those world competitions. If we did not do well, we can still do something to improve. I must encourage you, I must encourage all stakeholders to support the international competitions. Let me go to the fifth outcome, supporting the growth of the TVET college system. The college system in the past was looked at as an inferior. And we need to do away with those perceptions. How are we going to do away with that? Let us provide the TVET college graduates with workplaces. The president of the country, early this year, during the State of the Nation address, committed that the Department of Higher Education and Training must ensure that 10,000 TVET graduates are placed in the workplaces. But as a department, to take on that call we decided to set a target of 15,000 TVET graduates being placed in the workplaces. We have allocated those targets amongst all SETAs, 21 SETAs. But I must call on the stakeholders here to say, can you assist us to make sure that this target of placing TVET graduates is realized? We cannot do without you. Minister, I heard Minister saying when he is confronted about the employers who will complain about the quality of the TVET output or the TVET graduates, he responds by saying, what are you doing to ensure that you assist the system to produce the quality graduates? So by saying that, I think it is to emphasize the importance of the role that must be played by all stakeholders of the PSET system. We cannot be able to produce the quality graduates unless employers are opening up workplaces to assist these learners to acquire practical experience. The skills development support for SMMEs, co-ops, and NGOs. We must appreciate the fact that the economy cannot only grow with only the contribution of the bigger employers. We mustn't underestimate the role played or the contribution played by the SMMEs to improving the economy. So as the SETA and also as the stakeholders, we must also come up with means to see how we can assist the SMME space to grow so that it can contribute to skills development and boost the economy. I want to talk briefly about the skills strategy for economic reconstruction and recovery plan. Given the COVID-19, various industries were affected, which also affected the economy seriously. But this sector of culture, arts, sports, hospitality, and tourism is one of the sectors which were highly impacted by the COVID-19. So we have a huge task to make sure that we assist this sector to recover. One of the RRP sectors and the areas in which you are expected to respond is to support this sector. There are 8 sectors that were identified in the skill strategy to support ERRP. So you have to make a contribution to make sure that this sector recovers. Before I end, let me also highlight the other areas as a department that we would like to put emphasis as part of our expectations from the SETA and from our stakeholders. One, the issue of partnerships with the industry and all stakeholders, not only the industry. All stakeholders, be it the higher education institutions, the training providers, as well as the quality councils. Because if we do not engage as the key stakeholders in the PSET, we cannot assist the sector. The quality councils have a role to assist with the quality assurance of the training programs. The employers have a role to assist by opening up their workplaces to place the graduates. The SETAs have a role to provide funding. The higher education institutions and the training providers has a role to make sure that they facilitate training programs. So we're encouraging partnerships among all PSET stakeholders. The other expectation from our side is to scale up the issue of TVET graduate placement, given the target of 10,000 that was directed by the President. But as the department, we raised it to 15,000, making it 5,000 more. We are encouraging all stakeholders to assist and make a contribution in making a dent in that area. Scaling up the support of training programs to support the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. If you can take your time to peruse the skills strategy for Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, you'll be able to see all the priority occupations which has been identified as scarce and critical skills that must be supported. And then supporting the world skills competitions, I've spoken about that. We are not only national. We are operating within the national borders, but we are part of the global community. So we must take the issue of our participation in the regional and international world competitions seriously, because we must always remain internationally relevant and globally competitive. We need to support artisan development. There is a lot of artisanship programs that are taking place within this sector. We know the NDP target that by year 2030, the country must be able to produce 30,000 artisans per annum. At present, I think we are able to produce roughly 19,000 per annum. So we must be cognizant of the target that by 2030 we must be able to at least produce 30,000 or even surpass that target. The student funding for the missing middle, that is not supported by NSFAS. The SETA has a responsibility to make sure that the support for those is also done. But I must also call on the stakeholders that you must also provide support. There are certain training programs that you can do on your own as the stakeholders. So we do not only encourage you to wait for the SETAs to provide funding. We are saying where possible, we're encouraging even the implementation of the training programs by the sector stakeholders themselves. Assisting the people with disabilities to get access to the labor market. There are various transformational imperatives that you must look at and make sure that they are implemented as we are pushing the implementation of the National Skills Development Plan. But we are expected to also ensure that we integrate those who were previously disadvantaged, more especially people with disabilities, to assist them gain access to the labor market. Lastly, I want to once more encourage you to continue with the good governance of the entity and the good performance. As a quality scholar, I learned that quality can always be improved. You are doing so well, but you can still do more. I was happy to hear the chairperson stating that the SETA in this sector is in the forefront of supporting the strategic direction of the department. And I must also encourage you to do more in that. We are happy, but we are expecting more. We know where our economy is. We know the challenges of our country as a developmental country. We know the type of energy that we need to put into the system to make sure that we address the triple challenges and also assist those who are not in employment, education, and training. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ngubane, for the words of encouragement. We really appreciate. I must say it feels good, for Cathsseta to have you here to congratulate us and to also make sure that we are heading into the right direction. I must say we will hit the call of everything you said we need to be doing. We will go to the plans, come up with plans as a SETA. We will continue to try and make sure that our subsector is able to compete globally And, you know, it's nice to hear our boss, you know, if you're a child and they say bring your parent, and the parent comes to, you know, to school or to wherever you are competing, and they're able to say to you, you are doing well, you know, it gives you strength and it gives you courage to say, I will be able to do more. I must say we have been saying that we're heading to 100% and clean audit. With your support and direction, we're really going to get it in the next financial year. Ladies and gentlemen, as we move right along with our program, I have been requested, before I call our last speaker, to add an item from one of our stakeholders who has requested that he wants to provide Cathsseta with an award because of the work that we have been doing with them for years. So I'm going to request the chairperson of the SETA and the chairperson and the CEO to come in front and receive the award on behalf of Cathsseta, just to receive the award on behalf of Cathsseta. I'm going to request Mr. Makubela to say something, just 2 minutes before we close, just to indicate why the award, and yeah, we'll take it from there. Yes, thank you, Mr. Makubela.
Good afternoon again. Congratulations to the SETA. I said that 2015, 2016, we wanted to write off this SETA. There was a time we even wrote a letter to say, please don't work with us anymore, because we are tired of our interns not being paid. And I must say that that is all history now, thanks to this SETA. It's not an easy thing working with unemployed graduates. When you have an unemployed graduate not paid, you not only having them not to be able to access the world of work, but we have a meal at home not being provided for. So the Department of Higher Education and Training delegate who spoke here spoke very, very well. And I think the chairperson, when you fund these programs, you are not funding just an intern. You are funding families. The lady who's standing here, she comes from the Eastern Cape. She's one of the interns. And there's another one sitting right over there. Tia, please stand. She's the tallest in the building. We really appreciate. We will send to you the completion testimonials. We've got lots of them, so that the board can see where the money goes to. But in a nutshell, thank you very much. Keep it up. There are so many TVET learners who still need these opportunities, and I think let's support them. Last call from us as SAGRA. Can you please go to schools and do art auctions? A lot of young kids there, they've got a good talent in drawing CEO. And this is a program that we are willing to co-fund with you and even look for further sponsorship so that we can appreciate art. And there's a lot of black, art specialists that are highly underrated. And in South Africa, I don't think we buy art. I buy art as an asset. So let's make sure that these young ones, they grow up from an early age, knowing that when I'm an artist, I can make a living. Thank you very much and congratulations. This is for your good work. I'm going to ask Ms. Modern Program Director to read the citation for us, please.
Can I request all board members to come to the front and the executives of Cathsseta as I read the award. Ladies and gentlemen, on our virtual screen, can I just see if you're still with us by the actions there, that you're still here? You can just raise your hand, clap, so that we can see that you are with us. The award, ladies and gentlemen, comes from the South African Council for Graduate. It is a profitable cooperative. It's Youth Employment Award, Skills Funding Category Silver 2022. awarded to Cathsseta, recognized as a champion partner investing in skills development for the youth in partnership with SAGRA through graduate internship and TVET work integrated learning, thereby fulfilling the mandate of the National Skills Development Plan. It's signed by SAGRA founder, Mr. Cathsseta on the 4th of November 2022 in partnership with Cathsseta. Can I request DHEAD to also join the Cathsseta leadership? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the award to Cathsseta. I think after the program, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, yes. Let's just close the...
So what we say, Cathsseta.
Yes, Cathsseta. Moving forward, yes. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to allow the chairman to just respond and just say one announcement before we call our last speaker to close the event.
Thank you, Program Director. I really am abusing the position of chair now, but it's imperative that I do spell out the 7 points that come out of this AGM as the line of march. It seems to me that we are asked to go out there and ensure coverage of all our subsectors. It was emphasized now that in arts we have not said anything today, and we need to go in there and do that. The second one is sharpening of the responses of our programs through skills, needs, and analysis, Mr. Ngubane said, is designing and rolling out a new program structure that advances a mix between classroom and work-based learning instead of the current. It's ensuring responsiveness to TVET colleges development program. It's improving partnerships with the PSET stakeholders, institutions, SETAs, industry, and everybody in the ecosystem. It's scaling up the work placement for the TVET learners and making sure we are driven by and support the ERRP, scale up the artisans program, ensure that we grow from the 19,000 to the 30,000 and beyond target of 2030, and ensure that we also focus on people with disabilities, as well as entrepreneurs and cooperatives. And that, number 7, the Cathsseta is to increase the support of the department's strategic direction. Those are the 7 cardinal points and that we have to work on. It seems to me we are given 2 levers through which to do this. The first one is ensuring that the surplus CFO is reduced strategically in the pursuit of these programs. And the second one is to use all policy amendments that we have in our, what's the right word? Capacity and power, capability as the authority to ensure that we achieve the above. We will therefore be reporting on these at the next AGM. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to close our meeting. I'm also now going to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for attending, for being good audience. And also, it has been an honor to be with you today to talk about important issues that are affecting the organization. When I started, I indicated that we want to talk to you and present the direction of the organization in as far as operations is concerned and the finances. And I am glad that we have done so. And when we're leaving here, each and every one of you connecting online, sitting here, understands where Cathsseta is in terms of its finances, in terms of its performance, and where it's heading to. I am going to leave you as well with the quote from the President J.F. Kennedy, who said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, and what your country can do for you, just ask what you can do for your country." I think more emphasis has been put on partnerships, collaboration. Everybody who stood here to speak spoke about partnership, collaboration, and we have acknowledged that Cathsseta has not met the unqualified audit opinion, and 89% on its own. It was in collaboration with our stakeholders, Tibet College, the entire PSET, Cathsseta staff members, management, the leadership of Cathsseta. So we really appreciate the efforts of everyone, and we know that with us collaborating going forward, we'll be able to achieve what we want to achieve. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call Ms. Lisiru Halisutu. She is one of our board members. She is the chairperson of FINREMCO. Her role at Cathsseta is to promote and provide assurance that is suitable to strategic HR framework, and to make sure that the organization delivers its mandate in line with the strategic plans and APP that is there. Ms. Lisutu, the stage is yours. Can we give a round of applause?
Ke a leboha Memphe. You did a very good job, I must say. I nearly said hallelujah because I thought I was in church, but there's no hallelujah today. But you would have pardoned me if I'd said hallelujah. I think it is still appropriate to say hallelujah, amen. Greetings, Cathsseta board members, our Cathsseta committee members, CEOs and heads of departments joining us live on our digital platforms. Cathsseta CEO Ntate Max Tibela. Greetings to the SETA CEOs present here today. Cathsseta Executive Management, Deputy Director General of the Department of Higher Education and Training, our training providers and employer groups. Of course, greetings to our special guest, Ntate Zukile Mvalo, and also our work skills participants who represented South Africa, funded by Cathsseta in two categories, that is the restaurant services and cooking categories, and their fellow experts and trainers. Well, all protocol observed. Program Director Memphe, my role, of course, here today is that of giving a vote of thanks, and I must say that it is a role that I do not take lightly. I take it very seriously because it is through thanksgiving that humility truly shines. To our distinguished guests, on behalf of the Cathsseta board, ably led by the chairperson, Ntate Themba Ndlovu, I hear we say Kacheni. I tried to Google what Kacheni means. I couldn't find Kacheni. I just have to swallow my pride and go to him and ask him what Kacheni means. Let me take this opportunity to thank you for joining us here today and inviting us into your space, and also for those who joined us via the multiple virtual platforms available today. As a SETA, we are honored to be here with you. We are thankful for the continued collaboration we still enjoy. We have managed to paddle through the hardships of the distress the pandemic brought to our shores. We know that it was a terrible time. As our subsectors are yet to fully recover, our SETA continues to conduct industry-related research to help us respond appropriately to new opportunities we are now faced with, as well as the challenges. Let us continue to stand together and deliver on the mandate of Cathsseta, which is to facilitate skills development with our subsectors through the disbursement of course, of grants for learning programs and monitoring of education and training as outlined in the National Skills Development Strategy. Thank you for being community leaders and mentors. That is highly appreciated. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our wonderful guest and keynote speaker, Ntate Zukile Mvalo, the Deputy Director General of the Department of Higher Education and Training, Rea Leboha. Thank you for taking time, Ntate Mvalo, out of your busy schedule to join us today to share your words of wisdom with our stakeholders. And that also includes us, because I do believe that we are also your stakeholders. Your dedication and support towards the SETA is of great value and highly appreciated. Well, to our well-skilled competitors, amen, you guys rock, eh? Mr. Yaga, Gilly, and Davy Rampele, you really, really have made us proud at the World Skills Competition 2022 special edition held in Switzerland. Colleagues, you don't know, these two young gifted African competitors fiercely represented us on a world stage, wearing our national colors and waving the South African flag with pride. The competition was tough, of course, but you worked so hard to earn your places in spaces that an ordinary child from South Africa can only dream of. We want to reiterate and make you aware and tell you that in our eyes, as a board and as Cathsseta, you are winners and you will remain winners. You should be proud of yourselves. To the World Skills national experts, thank you for supporting and coaching our beneficiaries from the beginning to the end of the project. We could never have gotten this far without you. As we are approaching the festive season, we are talking now to those that know that they always misbehave, like working even during the festive season. The Cathsseta board would like to wish you and your loved ones a happy and relaxing time with your family. Leave the laptops alone and the tablets. If you are fortunate enough, though, make time and take a short left and visit some of the beautiful sites and holiday destinations South Africa has to offer, our beautiful country, and learn more about our country. Well, during this joyful season, let us spare a moment of thought for families who lost their loved ones, families struggling to put food on the table, and families and people without a place called home. Yeah? Let us share the little that we have. As I conclude, Chair, thank you, CEO, for making sure that the Cathsseta ship sailed through the pandemic. We hope that efforts are still firm as we look towards economic recovery post-COVID-19. Thank you once again, Tate Tibela, for organizing this event together with your able team, your hardworking team, your excellent team, your dedicated team, and for your flexibility in accommodating the request from the board. To the SETA staff, you are the best. That is what we can say. Thank you for working tirelessly, day and night, to ensure that we meet our targets as a SETA. Your efforts are duly noted and highly appreciated. Now, to every one of us, including me here and those joining us online, thank you for lending us your ears today in this auspicious occasion. Please stay safe, do not work, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Melisutu. I'm not supposed to say anything after you've spoken, but some of the sentences, Chairperson, are going to cost us because, you know, our staff members will be saying, but the board said. No. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our event, but I've got few announcements just to say that our discretionary grant application window is open. It was open from the 21st. It's going to close on the 31st of January 2013. We're going to have our first virtual workshop on the 12th of December. Please do go to our website, register, and let our team help you to register to apply for next financial year. We will also be conducting physical workshops from January. Communication, I think, is already on the website. Please prepare yourself for the next financial year. With that said, it was an awesome day to have you all on the virtual side and everybody sitting here. We are at the end of the meeting. I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you. Okay.